Welcome, Nathaniel. Thank you for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
Allow me to introduce you. Psychotherapist and philosopher Nathaniel Branden, Ph.D., is a lecturer, practicing psychotherapist, and author of 20 books on the psychology of self-esteem, romantic love, and the life and thought of objectivist philosopher Ayn Rand. A pioneer in the field of the psychology of self-esteem, Branden has done more than anyone else to link the importance of self-esteem to human well-being, a mission which began with his involvement in Ayn Rands Inner Circle. Nathaniel, I'd like to hear about your latest book, The Vision of Ayn Rand, which is a presentation of the philosophy of the author of Atlas Shrugged and The Fountainhead. But first, I'd like to mention a few of your other books that I enjoyed very much. You're regarded internationally as an authority on self-esteem, and I like the 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem so much that I bought it for a few friends. I also loved reading The Psychology of Romantic Love, a book which you recently updated. Why did you feel the need to revise and update that book?
The reasons are too small for me even to remember them any longer. I just knew there were a couple of implications I wanted to make more clear, or one or two thoughts. They were relatively minor things, but they were important to me, even though nobody else would know the difference.
As an author, I can appreciate that very much. I'm always tweaking things. Now, in The Psychology of Romantic Love, you wrote something that stuck with me all these years. You wrote that the feeling that was present in all strong relationships was admiration. Can you speak to that?
Yes, this is one of the most important ideas that I really got from Ayn Rand. As a teenager, reading her books and then later reading Atlas Shrugged, I was struck how profound was the admiration for the people who loved each other in those stories. And years later, where I was thinking about what I mean by romantic love, which is probably quite different from what many other people think about romantic love, one of the defining characteristics of romantic love as I see it is that one feels not just love or passion, but admiration for one's partner. And absent that, you might see very intense relationships with all kinds of screwball psychologies, but you would not be talking about what I mean by romantic love. Hope that's clarifying.
Yes, that resonated with me, and it still does, and it's an important factor, so I'm glad you could speak to that. Now, years ago, I couldn't wait to read Judgment Day, My Years with Ayn Rand, and I found that utterly fascinating. I love that book. And you also updated that and renamed it simply My Years with Ayn Rand. Now, I haven't yet read the updated version. Am I missing anything?
Well, I'll tell you, it's not important enough perhaps to you, but here's the deal there, basically, very simply. In the case of the first version of the book, it's 98% identical with the new version, the newer memoir. But I was a little easier on people with whom I disagreed. I was a little more benevolent. I was a little less obviously hurt and angry. And I pulled material there that you were really feeling upset that day, or irritable that day, or angry that day. It's not necessary, cut it. So a lot of it had to do with reducing the amount of energy that was spent on people who had, I felt, lied about me, misrepresented the truth of what was really going on between Rand and me, and so forth. Anger is poison. It's nothing to carry around with you if it's possible to avoid.
I can appreciate that very much, and I'm very glad to hear that. Thank you for explaining that. You're right. I love the quote, resentment is like taking poison and waiting for the other person to die. Now, your new book is called The Vision of Ayn Rand, The Basic Principles of Objectivism. It's the culmination of work that you started more than 50 years ago to organize and systemize Ayn Rand's philosophy. Now, for those viewers who are unfamiliar with objectivism, can you define it?
It's simply the name of a philosophical system that was originated by Ayn Rand. She called her system Objectivism. And what is very much of an oversimplification now, let me say, what objectivism advocated and stood for was A, the supremacy of reason as the source of all knowledge, B, as rejecting of all forms of religion and mysticism. Beyond that, it has to do with a code of ethics based upon human nature and defended by means of reason and logic, contrary to the idea that all values are subjective and nothing can be regarded as objectively true. Next, the next aspect of the objectivist philosophy is the whole concept of individual rights and our view of the society as civilized to the extent to which the rights of the individual are respected and protected. So what we are now talking about is capitalism, libertarianism if you wish, and that's about as brief as I can get it. I hope that's useful.
Oh, very useful. Thank you. And of course, readers of the book will find much, much more. I mean, that's what the book is about, is all the principles of objectivism. But that's a nice introduction. Now, you began this work very passionately in 1958 to organize and systemize objectivism. What was your vision and motivation back then?
To spread the word, to let people know that this is something really, really important, very profound, very helpful in understanding the world in which we are all living, giving a chance for people of like mind to meet one another and perhaps interact in one way or another. All of the many factors which were resulting in kind of launching the beginning of an objectivist movement that the Nathaniel Branden Institute, where I taught the course which we called Basic Principles of Objectivism, the response to people was tremendous to that program and to that lecture series, but it only was available in later years. I shouldn't have put it that way, let me put it this way. It was never available in any form except audio. You could either hear it, we had it all on tape, and so we had centers around the whole North America where the course could be listened to and studied it. What I got a lot of messages from people who I respect in their judgment. For one, my ex-wife Barbara Branden, and from other friends of mine, urged me to transcribe the taped lectures and turn it into a book. And at first, I couldn't see the sense of it. I felt, who cares? But I was wrong. I found that I changed my mind, and I went to work on it, getting it transcribed. People volunteered instantly to make themselves available to that purpose. And I found the most tremendous enthusiasm for the project, which made me think, thank heaven that these folks talked me into it. I don't very often in this world get to be grateful to somebody who talks me into something. Barbara Branden in particular says to me, Nathaniel, you have got to do this. And she was dead on right.
Wonderful, wonderful.
She wrote the marvelously beautiful introduction to the book. I asked her to write a foreword to share some of her passion with the reader. And it's a fantastic essay in its own right called The Dawn of Objectivism.
Excellent, excellent. I'm